Hello, everybody, and welcome back to A Better Life New York. This is another one of the Antique Phonographs editions. So I'm back here with Joe, Tracy, and Wyatt Markus. And today we have the specialist guest of the phonograph world, Brett Hurt, better known as, and Wyatt corrected me when I said it last time, Dyslexic Genius. I got it right? Hurt. And I happen to be severely dyslexic, by the way, just in case it's necessary. So, and also Cheryl is there in the background taking care of his cats. If anyone has watched his videos, they are a mainstay of the entire antique phonograph world. There isn't anything you run into a problem that you can't find a phonograph video on, whether it's cleaning, whether it's oiling, whether it's refinishing, whether it's chemicals, whether it's a spring, whether it's all the things that I have no idea how to do even when I watch the videos. But he does a great job doing it. And he's just had his 2000th video, if you can imagine, on YouTube, which is quite an accomplishment for anyone. So welcome, Brett.
Thank you. We just hit 1 million views, too.
Oh, my gosh.
Nice.
That's where it's at, so to speak.
Last week, I don't know, Wednesday or so, we hit 1 million views.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot for a small niche community.
I think I account for 100,000 of those.
Yeah, I've watched some of them again and again.
We liked your one video, if I may, about the alligatoring.
Oh,
I think you were doing the a wooden horn.
Yeah.
And that was, I probably watched that 5 or 6 times. So we've actually applied that process to a couple of our machines, and it worked just like you said it would.
Taking off the alligatoring?
Yeah.
Yes.
Smoothing it out.
Yeah, every situation's different.
I have a stand-up Victrola. I look at it all the time, and I'm afraid that I'm going to ruin it if I touch it, and it's too big and heavy to take anywhere. But maybe I'll think about it. All these other experts here, I'm just a moderator. Brett, maybe you can give us a little idea how you got into this?
Roughly 40 years ago, we were antiquing and lived in L.A., and I found a phonograph, and that'd be fun to have. I had a radio, and it played the wrong music, and I thought, that'd be fun to have one of those in the house. And the guy told me that it still had the original baling wire in it, and I had a hacksaw file and tools. So I got the thing home, and it didn't run, so I thought, maybe I can fix this. So I started taking it apart and got the springs in backwards and fixed all that up. And lo and behold, it was missing a governor weight and a spring, and they wired it together, the governor together to run. And then I met Ray Phillips at the Rose Bowl swap meet. This nice guy was looking at record stuff, and he goes, "Oh, you know what you're looking at?" I go, "Yeah, I have a Victrola." And I thought it was the only one. And he goes, "Here's my number. You ever got a problem?" And I called him up because he lived in the LA area, and I go, "Where do I get parts?" And he introduced me to Dwayne at Musical Americana. And that's how it all started. And that back in the day with Dwayne, you could go, I have an exhibition. I need the gasket material. I need the isolator for the back. I figured all that out. He'd mail it to you, and you'd send him a check. It was fun back then. That's how I started. Then I thought, hey, that was fun. Let me find another one. So I went out, and I think I found a Junker 9, and I spent a long time working on it, cleaning it up. And I go, wow, this is fun. I'm going to print business cards and go to antique stores and tell them I know how to fix Victrolas. I had no idea. Seriously. And then another collector, Bert Paisley, I met him through Solvang Antique Center, and I went to them and said, you should go work for these guys on doing motors. So that's how I started.
Wow.
Pretty much self-taught. Back in the day, the phonograph guys wouldn't, hey man, how do you do this? Soak it in gasoline. How do you rebuild a reproducer? Give it to me, I'll redo it for you. And I go, no, I don't have the money for that. So I got to taught myself to run a lathe and a mill. And that just snowballed from there. So when I was going to college, I worked in an automotive restoration service. And they were like rebuilding Duesenbergs. And I was a flunky in Duesenberg engines while I was going to college. And I learned a lot about chemicals and stuff they used, and how they polish things down. It was fun, but that's pretty much my life story right there.
Can I ask you a question about how many machines do you think you've worked on or repaired, restored, rough order?
I have no idea, but we do have a receipt book, and I think I'm in my 15th receipt book. And Cheryl kept them all. We have them all upstairs in a room. I'm charged, really? And then when YouTube came out, I knew Ron Devilson. He says, "Oh, you should do YouTube." And I go, "Man, I don't know how to do YouTube. I'm not a tech guy." And I had 10 machines to work on for people in the garage because I was working full time. And then down the road, a buddy of mine bought an Army Navy, and he said, "You really need to do YouTube." And that was really the first one we did. We didn't know how to do YouTube, so Cheryl got it because we've moved to South Carolina from California, and she got on the town we're in, Simpsonville. So she on Simpsonville Facebook page go, "Hey man, I do YouTube," and this nice lady said, "Meet me at Starbucks. I'll show you how to do YouTube." I didn't know you had to download the app to do YouTube. And we fumbled through it. First, we were filming this way, and then somebody said, "We better film this way." So we started filming that way. And then I thought, okay, we'll do Friday night and Sunday night concerts, try to build up a repertoire. And then the tip for the day thing, at the end, like I do videos. We're having wine in the evening, and Cheryl says, "You need to do something for Friday night concert." And I said, "Okay, let me pick out a record, we'll play something." And then I did. And that's my tip for the day. I just grabbed my class. It went over real well. But we've been real busy. We moved, and I had to move the shop and everything, and it was really...
I know the other day when we spoke to check out the technology, you showed me a couple of your phonographs, and you showed me, which I know you rebuilt because I watched all the videos, is the Amberola 5. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't get over the finish on that when you were opening and closing it. It was just amazing. And I could probably search long and hard for a very long time and never find one with that quality of a finish on it.
Yeah, I really like them because they have a flywheel in them like an opera. They're totally gear driven, no belt. It's literally a baby opera. And I would buy one of those over an Amberola 30 or Amberola 50. Because it runs so much better, and it has a lot better sound on them, I think. They're really good machines. They're underrated.
Oh, they're terribly underrated, yeah.
So for everybody's edification that's never have any idea, and this is Wyatt's thing, he always stops us so we can explain what we're talking about.
Oh, right now? You want me to explain things?
Yes.
For those of us that are uninitiated into what we're talking about, Brett is a YouTube phenomenon.
Absolutely.
And what I love about Brett's videos is I have a small phonograph business too. If someone asks me, how do I do this? How do I do that? I'm like, go to YouTube. There's this guy and he'll show you how to do it. And what I love, you've got 2,000 videos covering a lot of different subjects. It's going to be on YouTube as a world reference for doing a lot of these repairs. And as we go into the cell phone, deeper into the cell phone and iPad era, people are becoming less mechanically inclined. And it's awesome to just say, this guy has a video on it, sit down for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, watch him do it, and you're going to learn something new. And everyone that knows me personally knows that I always encourage the teaching of these skills because that's how they get passed down. And our skill set is slowly falling out of public favor, but we're doing everything we can to keep these skills out in front. Mm-hmm. And it's important.
The other thing to point out, if I may, is it's not like these machines mostly require constant repair and attention. Brett, you're bringing machines that have been sitting around for 80 years back to life. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of them out there that have been sitting in attics. People pass away, grandma, grandfather, and then, oh, what's this? And people like Brett bring them back to life. Once we get these machines running, they're pretty solid. But the thing is, they just need to be brought back to life.
My point was that when we talk about an Amberola 5, and this is what Wyatt did last time we spoke on it, is that Amber 05 is a Thomas Edison phonograph that's made to play Ambriola 4-minute cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of the more complete, more fancy, more...
It's elegant.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have a 30 and a 50 and a DX, and I've always wanted... matter of fact, I have a diamond disc, which is another form of phonograph for Edison, and where he made these regular discs, and a chalet. And when they showed me the picture of it, I thought it was an Ambriola 5 because it wasn't that great of a picture. And I wanted it. And the worst way, I go, absolutely want it. I don't care. I'll be there. I got in my car, drove 2 hours into Connecticut to go pick it up. When I got there, it was a chalet. I still wanted it, but it just was a lot heavier than I expected it to be.
Yeah, that's part of the experience. When I was very young, when I just started out in this, I put out this little tiny ad in the paper. It cost $15 a week. It only came out, I think, in the Saturday edition, the weekend edition. Wanted antique wind-up phonographs, because that's what a $15 ad gets you. And going out, first of all, people didn't know how to explain to me what they had, because it was such a foreign thing to them. And like with that chalet that you went out and bought, this is before sending text images with our cell phones. You just went off of whatever they told you. And sometimes I would show up and it would be a 220-pound machine that I couldn't move all by myself. And they said, oh, it's light, it's simple. And then you get there and they're like, oh, I don't remember it being that big and heavy. And that was back in 1940 when you put it in the barn when you were a strapping young man.
Right.
Now, yeah, and mice were living in it. That's another show entirely. But it's a learning experience for sure.
Yeah. Back in the day, I couldn't afford them. They were expensive. So I was buying junkers, barn machines, and redoing them. And I got a call 25, 30 years ago. This guy in Vegas. Did you guys know Slim in Vegas? He was a big phonograph guy. Had done some work for him in Vegas, and somebody called him and he says he had 2 phonographs for sale. And this is when an opera was going for $7,000. Back in the day. And he goes, I have 2 Edison machines. I want $2,000. And I'm thinking, holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have $2,000. I'm paying the house off, working hard. This is a lot of money to us. So I go, Cheryl goes, let's go to Vegas and look. I said, okay, we'll drive out to Vegas. I go out to Vegas, see this guy. And this is a long shot. What am I going to find? A junker home? I had a nice drive to Vegas. So I park. He goes in the garage. He comes out, almost drops an opera on the ground. The horn's in 5 pieces. The cabinet's crushed, and the paint's falling off of it. The reproducer's there. And I'm going, okay, I'll pay $2,000 for this. Then he goes in, and he brings out a Triumph E with a signal in the same condition. And I'm going, wow. So then I get him home, and I called Ray Phillips, and I said, could you come over and look at this? And he goes, oh, sure. He came over, and he brought Ron Devilson. And I showed him the opera, and sitting on the dining table. I'm real proud of it. I don't have very few phonographs at the time and don't know as much as I know now. And Ray goes, oh, $2,000 for that? You can put that all back there. That was a real good price. And Ron's standing there, and I go, no, I bought both of them for $2,000. And they went, holy crap. Yeah, I had it stripped down and taught myself to pinstripe, and I did all this stuff to it. But they came out.
One thing about Ray Phillips is that he taught people never to take the first offer.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I learned from him. They're like, it's a fine line when you're out there buying in the world. If someone, brings out a $6,000 machine, you did the right thing.
Oh, yeah. And I did a video on that called Walkaways. You walk up, you look at it's in the videos, and So this guy has a ton of 78s. You want to go buy them. You want to go through them. And this is all personal experience. So I go over there and the guy goes, yeah, I went through it. I grabbed 30 78s. Let me see what they sell for on eBay. It wouldn't give me a price. So I let him sit in his house and go through eBay. And I said, yeah, I changed my mind to walk out. Yeah, you have to do it. It's like buying phonographs. You see a Vic 11 and the guy goes, yeah, I want $1,200. Yeah, a little high buy. Yeah, there's another one out there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've had some crazy experiences with people.
Brett, did I ever tell you I got a call, this is 17 years ago. This elderly man called me and he said he had an Edison phonograph. He doesn't know what it is. Joe and Tracy may have heard this story before, but they said, we have a steamer trunk full of cylinder records that go along with it. And I said, great. I drove 4.5 hours out to their house. I walk in the door. On the floor is an Amberola 30, which is the small, little inexpensive Amberola that they had back in the day. And it was positioned on the floor in front of a microphone. And what this couple would do is they would take a cylinder out of this huge travel trunk full of cylinders, and they would play it through the microphone and amplify it through the stereo system so they could hear it. And I'm looking at this, a little crestfallen. I drove 4 hours. But I said, oh, okay, I see the machine that you've got there. I know what that is. With conviction in his eyes, he looks at me eye to eye, and his wife is in a rocking chair in the corner, just knitting and rocking away. And he said, should we sell it to him? And the wife said, yep, we'll sell it to him. I don't need to keep these things. We're getting on. I'm 87, he's 89. We don't need it anymore. I'm like, okay. She's, that's the first phonograph that Edison ever made. I'm like, oh, all right, what up? Keep going. She's like, we won't let it go for anything less than $12,000.
Bargain. Buy it.
And I said, I don't think I'm a buyer at that price, but gosh, I sure have driven out quite a way to get here. So this guy who is 89, he grabs a fiddle and he sits back. He says, we've come all this way. You might as well get a concert. So he sits back and he plays me all these songs using this technique that he calls double strings. He's playing two strings, two different notes on two different strings. It was memorable and amazing. I'll never forget them. I did not buy the machine. I didn't even bother to negotiate. I just sat and enjoyed, and then he grabs this banjo with a resonator on it, and he starts playing the banjo, and I'm just blown away. This guy's been playing since he was 10 years old. And that's the hunt. That's what I love doing. I like the chase. Not so much the kill, but the chase is fun.
The chase is fun, or go look at something.
Yeah, it's always an adventure.
Yeah, I had a woman reach out to me on Facebook and said she had some 78 records from like the 20s and 30s, and she wasn't far from my house, and she wanted $50 for them or something, and she had about 100 or something records, and they were all acoustic. And I said to her, just out of curiosity, I'm walking out, and I said, by the way, what were you playing this on? She goes, oh, I have this old phonograph. And I'm like, you don't want to show it to me? I mean, if you're not going to have any records, there's no sense of having the phonograph. So she calls to her son, do you want to sell that thing? She brings out, and it was a 50, VV50, the portable one with the crank in the front, the earlier model. And she goes, I go, what do you want for it? She goes, $50. So it was great.
Yeah.
Geez, I am just...
And it works fantastically, by the way.
They were so well built and so well engineered. They usually just need a little bit of grease and a little bit of oil, and they just keep running. It's amazing. You had me thinking, since we're talking about Amberolas and small machines. Oh, there was this guy that called me. His father had passed away. Sorry, I'm full of stories. I'll make this one very quick. But they had an Amberola 50. I walk into the house, He shows me this Ambarola 50. And while I'm looking over the records, there's about 200 records on the table. There's some great stuff. Jazz, foxtrots, all the good stuff is on the table. And while he's showing me the machine, his cantankerous mother starts creeping down the stairs. She's stomping down the stairs. The stairs are creaking, and you can hear she's upset. She's like, "You selling your father's machine?" And he's, "Mom, we agreed that we wouldn't be keeping it." She says, "That's one thing that he really enjoyed." And she goes up to it. And you can't make this stuff up. She starts stroking the top of the cabinet, and she leans over and she plants her big lips right on it and kisses the cabinet. And now I feel like I'm the bad guy. And I said, "Are you sure you want to sell this to me?" And they're like, "Oh," and the mother has a tantrum and just walks off. The guys tell you what, it's $710, which was a lot of money for me at the time. And he's like, "Why don't you just look at the records, and I'm going to go talk to her and cool her down and talk about the machine." So of course, I got all the good records and I set them aside.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Okay, I'll give you $100 for all these records here." And the mother looked at them, and then she just nodded, "Yeah." And I said, "This way you can keep the machine a little longer." And she smiled at me, gave me a little box for the records, and led me out the front door. And the sons, "We'll talk in the future. I'll call you." So I'm going down the front steps. I'm going down the driveway to where my car was parked. And she started screaming at him. And it started, I heard everything. Single pane glass window. She's, "He took all the best records. You should have never invited him over here. Well, this machine's never complete anymore. Your father's looking down at us. And he's just weeping right now. I can feel it." And then she starts grabbing her pearls. And I'm like, "Oh, God, now I feel horrible."
You take it back.
So what happens next week? I felt so bad. I lost sleep over this. I called him in 5 days. I said, "Hi, does your mother still want to sell the machine?" "Yeah." So what happened? I went back and I paid $710 to her for the machine with the remaining records. And that's the story.
My best story, and I don't tell very many people about this, was an antique store in Inglewood. And I'm in there. And
I know that store. In North Jersey, in Inglewood.
Emerald 30?
No, I know that store. You were in an antique store in and the guy wants $1,000 for everything.
Yeah. So I go in there, and they have an Ambarola 30 apart. Okay, and I've probably been playing with phonographs over a year. And I look at this thing, man, it's an Ambarola 30. Yeah, this is great. So and it's one of my little business cards and having fun. And mostly the hunt like Wyatt. But the husband's gone. The lady's gone. The husband's here. And I go, "Hey, how much you want for all those parts?" He goes, $100. Okay. Everything's here. I go home. I'm excited. I rebuild this whole thing, put it all back together. I make it run, do everything I think I know what to do. So I take the machine back to them and go, "This is the work I do. Here's the phonograph." They're both there. I play it. I said, "This is phonograph work I do." People come in and want the phonograph work done and send me the business. And when people would send me business, I'd always take the antique store, whoever, a bottle of Max, appreciate this. So I go in there and I'm happy, and I'm a kid. I crank it up, it plays. Patsy goes, "You screwed me." Never went back into that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she was nuts. Yeah, that was
happens.
Oh yeah, these people is like, "Okay, I'm out of here." Most people are fun. We were when we moved to South Carolina, put my cards out and stuff a little bit, and these people called me, and they're about 45 minutes away. So we drove out to look at this phonograph and tell them what they had. They had an early Victor. It was like a 16 with a door in the back. It opens up, and I says, "Oh, this is a nice Victor." And 3-spring motor. It's a real nice machine. I said, it has a door in the back. I said, it's against the wall. No, if the house gets robbed, nobody's going to walk out the house with a Victrola unless they're really strong. I said, you can just open that door and put jewelry or money in there. And the lady's sitting there. And these 2 people are like in their 80s. And she goes, yeah, I've been putting money back there for saving money for a long time. And these people are like in a mobile home. And then the husband goes, you're putting money back there? And she goes, yeah. He says, so am I. So we turn the machine around. And there's like tons of cash in the back of this thing.
That's awesome.
Joe and I have bought a couple of junkers just in hopes that there's money in there. One of these days we're going to find one with the stash of cash in there, but we haven't found it yet. But you find these ones even in antique stores, you just got to look, make sure there's nothing hidden back there. We found one with the original shipping stuffing in there, and I was so excited because I thought for sure there's something under there. Nothing.
I bought I think it was a Victor 5 a while back, and I opened it up, and you never see these. The little wooden piece that fit under the motor for support when they ship was still in there. Oh, wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I think the best thing I ever found in a machine was an uncirculated 1914 penny. That was about it.
Any of you guys know Bert Paisley? He's out of California.
Heard the name.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I was over at his house in Marina Del Rey once, and on a shelf in his house, he had these flapper silk nylons with a line up the back. And I'm going, oh, okay. He pulls them out and he goes, yeah, I had them cleaned. And he points over to his credenza and he goes, yeah, when I took my credenza apart, those were inside the credenza.
Oh, cool.
From 1920.
Only thing I ever find of animal droppings. I did, though. I got a machine in today. I got a Victor 420 I have to do total ground up thing on. And we're pulling it apart because I got to strip it down and refinish it. And Cheryl found a letter. The machine's from El Paso, Texas. And there was a letter inside mailed from Mexico to El Paso, Texas, with a nice little 10-cent Mexican stamp on it. It's on video already. And it was, oh, my dear sister, I'm feeling better, yada, yada, yada. It's all in Spanish. But you can see the video, but the handwriting is unbelievable. The cursive writing is just fabulous looking. I have to give that to the customer.
I had a friend that bought a captain's desk from an old sailing ship. And when they spent a fortune of money, and when they got it home, they were cleaning it out, and they opened a drawer, and stuck in the back drawer was a stamp. And they took the stamp out, and it turned out that the stamp was an original handwritten stamp by the United States Post Office.
Oh, my gosh.
And it was worth $1 million.
Wow.
So things like that happen.
Yep.
In my
Just not to us.
Yeah. Obviously, that's why we're doing podcasts.
my camera associate producer gets mad. Yeah. He goes, Brett, if I don't understand what you just said, nobody out there in YouTube land is going to understand what you said. You need to dumb this down so I understand and everybody else understands. And sometimes we have 3 or 4 takes.
So I have great editing software, so I edit things. I had somebody on once a while ago, and we were talking, and I make and sell CBD. And I had somebody on, and I couldn't understand anything they said about explaining it. I literally took it apart sentence by sentence and pieced it back together so it made sense. That's easy to do if you know how.
I don't write a script on the videos, how people set all this stuff up. I just want to come in 3 or 4 minutes, and I want to be out. And I just do it off the top of my head, what I'm doing. But it's in little segments.
Right.
So, like I'm doing a Columbia machine right now. I have the whole run of the Columbia machine. This is the Columbia 4-spring motor. Okay, let's start taking this thing apart. And I show you how to take it apart and then how to put it back together and how to grease and oil it. I do a whole string of videos now on things. So you can do it anywhere in the world. I do it chemically and everything else on how you can do it, like in India or Brazil or South Korea or any place. And I've FaceTimed a few people. I FaceTimed a guy in Brazil once, and he had an idea. They speak Portuguese. He has a friend of his who speaks English, and we're doing translation over FaceTime. Okay, this is how you fix it to make it work. I've done a lot of that. I do all that for free. I get no money off YouTube because it's all for free. And I've done a lot. I just did a guy in Switzerland. I think I helped him. He had a problem with the machine. I said, okay, listen, send me a picture, and then I can tell you how to do it.
I think that's what's impressive about all the videos and everything you guys do is that it's dedication to the hobby, to make it live forever, to give people, whether or you don't know. And we talked about this the other day a little bit, is that, and the three of us have talked, or four of us have talked about it too, is to try to make this available to others who don't want to be, who are on the outside and don't really know. They know you crank it up and you put a cylinder on, but they don't know if it's a black cylinder or a blue cylinder or what the difference is or what the reproducers are. And they have a lot of simple questions, and some people just don't want to help others. As a matter of fact, criticize people for asking basic questions. I won't say stupid questions, but basic questions. And I think that's important that we all do that. I don't know much. There are a few things I know. I know the difference between a C reproducer and an H reproducer. I know the difference between a diamond and a sapphire. I know the difference of things like that. So there are things to say, and we all have had problems and figured them out or had somebody figure them out for us. Yeah. And that's what's great about your videos, is that you're constantly explaining things in a way for anybody, even me, to understand how you do it. Whether I can accomplish a task, that's another story. But I find it interesting just to learn how it is together. And I find that the technology of these phonographs are so basic and complex all at the same time. It's pure genius, excuse the expression, pure genius of how these things are put together in the simplest terms. And that's why they still run.
Yeah, the biggest thing I get is my Victrola. I'm just using that as nomenclature for all machines. Right. Doesn't run. I had a guy email us, and he goes, he had a D, and I go, okay, great. It's not running. It's slowing down at 3/4 of the way in. And I go, okay. I said, it can be a lot of variables. I said, the problem, I said, with the D is you got one little spring in there. And the guy goes, oh, the guy I bought it from said they put a new spring in. And I'm thinking, yeah. I go, why don't you crank it all the way up till the crank gets really tight? And I get an email back, wow, this thing plays. I go, yeah, I know it plays. Yeah, got those little single spring motors, you got to, especially like on Victor's, you got to crank them up. But that's the biggest thing I get is the OCD. I bought it from this guy, and he told me to crank it 15 times. And now it won't play a 78. And I go, yeah, why don't you crank it all the way up? And always let it run all the way down.
And people put modern records on these things. They put and all kinds of things, even just electronically recorded ones that they're not necessarily, though some play them. They're not really made for them. And there's many that don't. And it's not that they don't run right. It's just that they're not made to play those things.
Yeah, it all comes down to education with these, having to educate the world. There are several resources on the internet, and I haven't been to antiquephono.org, which is the Antique Phonograph Society in the United States. But last I was told, there are supposedly resources on there for people to access, so they can learn, what is my record worth, what type of record should I be playing on my machine, stuff like that.
There are, but I think they're a little dated. I found them and not easy to use. I didn't find them that, at least for me. I think you learn more from just talking to everybody. And I thought going to the Wayne show, which is the only show I've ever been at, now I've been there 3 times, that I've learned a lot from people. In the beginning, people maybe not have been as receptive because I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. Maybe I was shy about it. But as time went on, And this time especially, because I was with these two gentlemen, so that was a help. People talked to me, and I learned a lot more. And I negotiated a lot more because it comes to a point you don't really need anything, right? You see something you want, you know that there's another. It's not if it's something special that you know you're not going to see, never saw before, you're not going to see for a while. But when you just average everything, like I bought a Victor 4, not the Roman numeral 4, the V, whatever it is.
Victrola 4, yeah.
Victrola 4. So that it came with a matching cabinet. And I have one already, but it didn't have the cabinet, and I couldn't buy the cabinet without buying the machine. So I dragged my feet, and I got it for half of what he had offered to me when I was there. So,
that was at the Wayne Show. That's right.
At the Wayne Show, and that's why now I have one in my office and one in my house. But
good.
Can't have too many.
The VV4, it's an excellent wedding present for a young couple if you want to just surprise everyone there. Oh, here you go. I've got you this.
I have a hard time with separating myself from a phonograph I may have purchased or
Stephen, you did mention the other day that it's getting close to the time where you might consider selling something.
There are two, only because I'm ready to take the next step. Like I bought my first Triumph, and I bought it at auction. It was rather cheap, except that it was a little bit needed work. And we're lucky enough to know somebody who's very good at Edison, Ed Warner. And he loves the project. And the more difficult it is, the more he likes it. And he'll call me 5 times a day. Oh, I got this done. Oh, this broke. But I got this. I got another piece. I put a thing. And then I had a Fireside that had which is another Edison model, just so everybody listening knows. And it had this beautiful signet wood horn on it. And I said, man, I bet you that would look pretty good on my Triumph. So I brought him that one. I had him take everything off of it and put the wood horn on the Triumph. And then I bought a regular black horn that I haven't put on yet for the Fireside.
This is the psychology of phonographs.
Yeah.
I can see it in your eyes while you're talking about it.
Well, he also had to change the carriage configuration for
Correct.
that other horn.
Because it only had 2 minute with a C reproducer, and now has a 2 and 4 minute, and has, what is it, the horizontal top with with an H? Is that what's on it? An H? I don't remember.
Or K? No, K.
K with a K.
Yeah, K. You got the insert. You got the insert, so it would fit the K.
So now I have this beautiful thing that I love to just sit and play.
Triumphs are great. 2-inch springs, 3 of them. Wind them up, they run forever. The only thing is, if you have more than 2 springs, people don't wind them all the way up. And then when they wind them up, if they have never redone the spring barrels, then the graphite and stuff in there that sticks together, and then you'll hear this thump sound. On Triumphs, wind them all the way up. They need to be oiled more than normal because of that. The only downfall of a Triumph, the whole motor, is the pot metal pull. They're starting to deteriorate now, and usually they're locking down on the shaft where they go between the 2 parts of the casting. Place a.
You mean one of these?
Oh, yeah.
Just happen to have one with you, huh?
I happen to be at thephonographshop.com. I am their guest today. I just happened to have spied this when I came in. What'd you say? I'm sorry?
You're at Brian's?
I'm at Brian's.
Tell Brian we all say hi.
Hi, Brian.
Well, he's out in the shop making springs right now. I would be out there cutting steel with him and winding him up, but I saw this little pulley sitting on his table here, so I figured I'd grab it.
So make sure he knows he's next on the agenda, okay? What?
Oh, sure. My microphone's here.
I'll be right back. You guys talk.
Okay.
Okay, now we can talk about Brett now that he's gone. Okay,
Cheryl
so
shut it down.
the thing is, so I'm spending the night at Brett's house, okay?
Right.
I get up in the guest room. What'd you say?
Brett's or Brian's?
Brett.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm there in the guest room. And then the next morning I wake up, I look on the wall, and there's this full color photo on the wall of him in a karate robe costume.
It's called a gi. It's called a gi.
A gi. And he is in the air doing a flying kick.
What did I do?
And I'm like, what in... So I go downstairs, we talk about it, and after a few glasses of wine, because you can't hang out with Brett and just drink water, a few cups of wine, he stands up, we're in his den, and he's, come on, punch me. I'm like, what? No, of course not. I don't want to. No. And he's, come on, do it. I do a slow motion punch at him. It lands on his chest. In half a second, he had me immobilized. He is a walking...
Started when I was 10.
Same time as collecting.
But it's fascinating. This is part of the phonograph community. You get to meet different people and you get to learn about them personally. And that's one of the things I love about Brett and Cheryl. One is the shrimp and grits that they make for
I
me.
love shrimp and grits.
Oh, yeah. And just learning about other people's lives and, of course, sharing as well. It's part of the community aspect of this little hobby of ours.
Mm-hmm.
So the interesting thing about the fact that you're at Brian's house is we talked about it in the last show. We used to live, 15 minutes from Brian.
Mm-hmm.
He's the first person we met in the phonograph community when we bought our first phonograph. And he showed us how to do the basics and what he was doing to fix our first machine, and then showed us his museum, if you will, in his house.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, we were hooked because we'd never seen a cylinder.
Yeah.
And we're just like, what is that? What is that? And of course, got bit by the bug. And then after that, when we were trying to look at things, I believe he's the one that told us about Brett's website. So we would call Brian about stuff, and then we would look at Brett's website. And I'm pretty sure Joe called you a couple times about things way back when we started. And then somehow we got hooked up with Wyatt. So the three of you are really the reason that we are collecting and repairing and selling and doing all that we do, is because the three of you shared your knowledge so willingly that it welcomed us with open arms. And now we've made friends and are in the community and meeting new people. We haven't met you in person yet, Brett, but we've definitely, we feel like we know you and Cheryl.
Absolutely.
Your angel, if you will. I believe is what you call her. Yeah. Thank you for all you do. And make sure you give Brian a big hug for us and tell him we said hello, because that's how we got started.
You need a Triumph pulley in 6061.
What? Oh, you're turning them out of aluminum?
Yeah. They never well up.
Somewhere here, there is a small inventory of pulleys out of turned aluminum.
Oh, really?
I don't know if he knows where they are or if they're on his website, but they're solid. They don't have the holes drilled in them or milled into them, but easy enough to add. But I'll be looking through parts all day tomorrow, maybe even later tonight. I'm so hopped up on coffee, I'll probably be out in the shop with my headlamp until about 12:30.
What parts? What do you need parts for something? What?
It's funny. Every time I want to get away from work, I end up driving somewhere that is phonograph related. Like last time I went to Joe and Tracy's. And now here I am. I drove 11 hours to get down here to look for parts. And it's to keep my business running. I need oddball reproducer parts, springs, clips, screws, all these little things that I don't know that I'm going to need them, but if I see them and I use my imagination, I'll be like, yeah, I should probably get that because someone's going to send me whatever to work on a reproducer.
While you're there, can you find those tiny little screws
hinge blocks.
that plus those tiny little screws that hold the Columbia spring barrel half clamshells together?
I think
those little tiny ones, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, though I think the only place we're going to get those is off of a parts motor at this point. I don't even think Ron had those in stock. I think he just took them off of parts motors. So they're the same as the Graphenola. I forget the spring or the threading. I think they're 440
Why they ever went to that design, I don't know, but they use 5 or 6 of them. Yeah. And you can get away with maybe missing 1 or 2, but not 4.
Right. I'll see what I can find. Another thing that, since this is about Brett, I don't want to talk about myself anymore. What I really loved watching when I was at Brett's house is that his wife is part of the show. I showed up one day and there she is polishing this horn very skillfully in his workshop and doing an amazing job. And she seemed to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. It's like a thing that couples do together. And it was really great synergy. There's wonderful energy there. And I admire that. Couples that can share
I do too.
Yeah.
And Joe and Tracy are another example. They really, when you go in the downstairs, you see her workbench and whatever else goes on, and you know that there's a division of labor there. Mm-hmm. She does one thing and he does the other, and I do neither. So it works well for me. Because I'm just gonna give this to you. I'm not even gonna take it home. I'm not gonna look at it. I'm not gonna see if I can get it to. I'm not gonna do any of those things. I'm just.
I can't remember if it was Wyatt or Brett who pointed out that there are so many different talents in repairing these machines, because you have woodwork, you've got nickel plating, you've got spring motors, you've got grease, you've got oil, you've got all sorts of different things.
It's a multidisciplinary art.
Yeah. So Tracy and I, as you mentioned, Stephen, Tracy works on the reproducers and she does a fantastic job at them. And I do the other stuff, and we both clean cabinets and stain and
shellac.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You did a great job, by the way, on my Sonora. I love that thing.
Yeah, that was a fun machine. It's beautiful.
I don't know what model is that. Do you remember?
I
forget. Not. It was a tabletop, and it's a low profile, and it's a little bit wider than the others. And I haven't seen it around hardly at all.
Yeah.
But I bought that and the B80 that Brett saw the other day when we were talking and back at me at an auction. And strangely enough, Joe had bought something at that auction too. So I was able to go upstate and pick it all up. And it was like walking back in time. It was an old barn in this auction house. They're all talking. I couldn't even, they had such accents, in rural New York. I couldn't understand what they were saying. And I pull up in my Mercedes, a city slicker, and like, you guys just, I'm like, I grabbed the kid. Here's $20. Please carry everything out and just put it in my car. But
I showed up at a country auction once and I bought this. They had an Edison Standard there. And to further illustrate how country this place was, I bought a little graphophone for $250. I think I paid $400 for the Standard, and I got a round of applause. And as if that's how it is in this little one-horse town. But I grab my stuff, I turn around and start walking out, and this dude walks after me, and he follows me out of the tent. And I'm at my car, and he yells at me from the tent. This here's my territory. Who do you think you are? You see, this is almost 20 years ago, and I remember it as if it was yesterday.
It's haunting you.
A little bit. But when I leave an auction, a country auction where I'm the only guy that buys the phonograph stuff, that image, that mental video keeps it's rewind and play over and over again in my mind, because it left a little fear in me, and it also made me self-aware of exactly what I was doing. And have I offended anyone? I'm always concerned about offending other people there, but if you want something, bid more than me.
Yeah.
So
well, it's also difficult when you're doing estate sales and estate auctions, right? Because it's emotional for some people if it's if they're doing it and you don't want to offend, and they think something might be worth more than it is. You don't want to offend them by saying it's not, but to them, the value's different, right?
Yeah.
So it's tough when you go to certain places. That's for sure.
Yeah, the stuff is still out there.
Definitely, most definitely.
I have a 78 major collector in town, and he went to a yard sale last year, and they had a buddy of his said they have 78s. This is a guy with 200,000 78s. And he goes in there. It's 50 cents a box. And he flips through it. And he comes to a brown vocalion.
Ooh. Ooh.
And he pulls it out, and it's Charlie Patton. Nobody knows that's major money.
Major money.
Like 10 grand.
Yeah. Is it our job to educate the seller and say, oh, yeah, by the way, I just pulled an Edison disc out of your collection worth $800. Tell you what, to be fair to you, why don't I give you $775? And I've had to deal with it. I guess it's an education and how to deal with people when you're the buyer and they're the seller. It was my great grandfather's. I have to say, breathe in, breathe out. Okay. I deal in dollars. I don't deal in sentiment and emotion, and just trying to get a price out of someone. One of my tricks that was taught to me almost 20 years ago as well. Everything's 20 years ago. I guess I've been in this a while. Was when someone has something that you would like to purchase, you say, how much is it? And what we usually get, I know everyone else here may have experienced this. The seller says, I don't know. And this is a very dangerous spot because if I know that after I fix a machine up, it could be $1,500, I obviously want to get it for $500 or less. And I said, whatever price I give you isn't going to matter if you don't have an expectation in your head. Why don't we start here? You have a number in your head that will satisfy you. If I say $2, you're going to say no immediately. So why don't you give me the price that is going to satisfy you, and we'll start there. And that about 90% of the time works. And most of the time, it's a price that's way below what I'm willing to pay. And I'll have to boost it up a little bit, because if they find the crank to the machine, if the crank's missing, or if they find the record collection that originally came with it, I want them to be comfortable knowing that they can call me when they find that and not feel like they got screwed on their family's antique. There's a very fine line when you're the buyer. But yeah, at the same time, if I found a Charlie Patton 78, I might, hey, they called the price 50 cents a box. That's what it's worth to them. They stated that, but obviously every situation is different.
Right now is a great time buying phonographs because
it really is.
The prices have just cratered.
Yeah.
This used to be $1,200, and I'd spent that back in the day. I'm on my sixth credenza. I have a leather. Look at credenzas, $350. I'm going, damn, if I was a collector today, starting over, just into this hobby, I'd buy. You could get really good deals on these. Research, call people or ask questions online about, what do you think this is? It's like eBay. People call us or mostly email us, what's this worth? I'm going to put it on eBay. I go, you can put it on eBay for $20,000 and it's going to sit there forever.
Yeah.
You can sell it for $30. What you do is you go to eBay and you go, let's say you look at a Vic 11. I go to eBay, and then there's that little thing up there at the top, and you go, what have they sold for? And how many haven't sold at this price? And you go, oh, so this thing's really worth $200.
There's this technique when I used to sell Volkswagens, I call it the snake. So you say, Mr. Smith, this Victrola 11 that you have, I know you're asking, $250 for it, but on average they sell for about $100. Wouldn't you agree that's a good price? That's the snake. They see you nodding and in their head, and you ask open-ended questions. Tell you what, Mr. Smith, how do you feel about selling it to me for $100? Because then they have to sit and think in words in their head instead of, will you take 100? No, because no is easy to say. There's another thing, salesmanship of the talking machine. Horse trading. It's what it is.
Yeah, it's horse trading.
But I love it.
So
I love every aspect of this.
I do something different. I routinely end up with people whose family member love this, whether it's a husband, whether it's a father, whatever. I go on and on about how I'm a collector, not a dealer, and I'm going to treasure it like they treasured it, and it means a lot to me. And they feel that this treasured phonograph that was a part of their family is going to be in a great home with someone who's going to treasure it. And then I always walk away with it.
See, I have friends that go in, they're choir boys, I call them, and they're major collectors, but they go in and say, oh, I've never seen anything like that before. Oh, I wish I could afford it. It would look good, so good in my collection. Next to my VV50 and my Victor 1, it would be so perfect there. And oh, I don't know if I have the money. And oh, I can see you really want it. Oh gosh, you can have it for $200 or whatever. For some people, I've seen it all. I have seen it all.
Oh, some of these stories, I'll tell you a story. I bought my Beethoven.
Yeah.
Sonic. I have both versions, the Schubert and the Beethoven. And I love the Beethoven. It holds a gazillion records.
Yeah.
So I drive to Alabama to pick this thing up. My buddy Howard wanted to go. Cheryl came. We all drove down in his pickup truck. And I got there. And I paid $350 for the Beethoven.
Yep.
You know, he had two worker guys because they were getting rid of grandma's stuff. So I paid him $20 to throw that massive 300-pound thing in the bag. And then he had some other parts. And he had the elbows to a Victor horn outside horn machine, the elbow. And I looked down at him, and Ron Sitko's old elbows he had done have two little pins sticking out. So I'm looking down at these, and he has one that's not the nickels off of it. It was brass. And I thought, oh, this is nice. I'll just buff that out and I'll re-nickel it. And the guy goes, so I set him down and he goes, what do you give me? I gave you $50. That's a fair price for it.
Yeah.
And he goes, you're trying to screw me. Hey. He talks to the wife, and this guy just starts going off. Oh, yeah.
Hope you had the phonograph on the truck already.
I could tell you. The other story is my buddy Taylor Sherrill in Kentucky. I hope I get this right. I always get him confused with Tennessee or something, where he lives. He texts me, and he goes, Brett, an Amarillo 1A in your neighborhood. So I call this guy. I get on Facebook Marketplace, $700. And I go, okay. Hey, man, I'll pick it up right now at 7 o'clock at night. Let's go. I'll get back to you. I said, okay. The guy goes dark. And this guy's a wackadoodle. And he goes dark. I say, so when can I pick this up? And they do go dark on you. So he goes, he's an estate salesman. So he's in Anderson, which is like a little over an hour away. And the lady's house is in the gated community. And I go, okay, I'll meet you there. I'll put in nav, drive down, I'll pick this thing up. Here's your money, cash, let's go. So I get there, the electric gate's open. So I pull in, and there's a parking lot across from this house by the pool area. So I parked there, and Cheryl texted and said, yeah, we're here in front of the house by the pool. The gate was open. This guy pulls up the side of my car. So I'm parked here, and he pulls in like this. He rolls down the window, and this guy is screaming at me. It's coming out of his mouth. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm taking a beating from this guy, but you gave me a price $700 on an A1. I'm going to take it. It has both reproducers. So we're climbing the stairs. It's upstairs. My poor angel had to help me do this. So we climb upstairs, and the guy's screaming at me. And the old lady who's selling off the estate of the house tells this guy, calm down. I go, okay. Cheryl goes, so what are we going to do? I says, well, okay, I got a plastic bag. We'll pull all the cylinders out of the machine, put them in a plastic trash bag. That's the way to carry them. And I'll pull the motor. So I pulled the motor, took it back to the car, got the cylinders out, and I started to roll it to the staircase. It wouldn't help us. Oh, I have a bad back. You can't roll it. So we had to pick this thing up, and Cheryl's not that strong. So I rolled it, and we did the ass bump down these staircases, right? And I got it to the down, and the guy's still screaming, spit's coming out of his mouth. And I got to go from the bottom of the staircase to the front door. I just pushed it on hardwood floors, and the guy's screaming at me. What happened was he had a jukebox, and he wanted a jukebox was like $3,000. And then when I checked the price, the jukebox was probably worth $500. He had his prices split.
Oh.
And it was fun. But it was great helping me get it down, and we got it into the Prius and drove home. But sometimes you have to take the screaming to get what you need. And it was crazy. The guy, spit coming out of his mouth. I'm walking up the staircase, and he's just going, I'm going, okay, Brett, be calm. Don't yell at anybody. I'm not really a yeller guy, scream, but we got it out the door.
Tracy and I must be doing something wrong. Nobody has screamed at us.
Not yet.
The first and only one that ever screamed at me.
Maybe we're paying too much money. That's why.
And then Cheryl was going to go, he sells on Facebook Marketplace. I'm going to give him a bad review. Before we got in the car and drove out, he blocked.
I saw another Sonora tabletop in Facebook Marketplace, and the guy couldn't sell it or whatever he said. So I said, no, I'll definitely take it, but you got to ship it to me. It was up in someplace up by the Adirondacks. And I said, ship it to me. And he's, I want to find a cheapest way to ship it. And I said, he goes, I think I could do it for $25. I said, I'll give you $50. I don't just pack it up, extra, buy whatever, do it the easiest way. I don't care. Just make sure it gets packed. So the guy goes dark. So I'm writing him, and I'm like, I guess you're not going to sell it to me. And I'm being polite, but a little stern. Then I found out the guy passed away. Or he sold it. And I felt horrible because I was really not nasty, but
Yeah.
That's a legit excuse.
yeah, it was pretty legit. And I ended up getting the one I really like anyway, which is I like better than the one he had for sale.
You always have to be nice when you go into. There are some a-holes like this guy screaming at us, but most of the time I try to be just like real nice and real friendly.
Yeah.
You know, it's like on the phonograph forums. You get on the forums and there's people in there who just, yeah. I'm always going, you got to love what you do. You got to love what you buy. Enjoy what you want to have as a phonograph and be nice to people. And somebody will go in there, let's say buy a Vic 11, and they'll strip it all down. They'll refinish it. But they're stripping it down and refinishing it to what they like. And then you get people that go, that wasn't all original. Made 1 million Vic 11s. 900 and some thousand, probably over 1 million. People don't realize it. Like you were saying, that's Wyatt was saying, that's the only Edison they ever made.
Oh, yeah.
On an Amber Old 30. They made millions of these things. And it's just like when I'm on a forum, somebody does a restoration or something or does some work, I go, oh man, you did a great job. Because you can always learn from everybody. I'm still learning.
Oh, there was this one Edison that I did not buy, but I had to restore it for somebody, actually unrestore it. It was owned by a doctor who did all of his own restoration work. And he stripped the cabinet of all of its finish. And then he put on a really thick coat of urethane. It looked like a bar top. It looked almost plastic. Mm-hmm. And if that wasn't bad enough, on the inside of the cabinet, the entire inside was also brushed with this thick layer of urethane. And so that it would float in the ocean, because that's the only reason why I think he did this. He took silicone caulk and I'm not making this up. On the inside of the cabinet, he put caulk down all of the seams between the boards so that it was completely watertight. And
did he live on a houseboat?
Swimming pool.
No, all of his machines. He had about 75 machines. They were all restored like this. And all the nickel was stripped and redone. All the felt was ripped off and replaced. They all looked over-restored. They looked like they were made out of molded plastic. That's how much urethane the guy put on these. And to get urethane off a cabinet, you have to have a really strong furniture stripping solution. but I put on 3 coats of this stuff and let it work for an hour. It barely touched it. It was something, maybe it was marine urethane. I don't know. It was strong, but story of machines. People are going to buy them. They're going to, as you said, do them up as they like.
Yeah.
And there are several phonograph dealers out there now that only sell things that look shiny with new nickel and new finish, and they're perfect and they're priced accordingly. And then you have folks like me. I like them dirty, and you clean them up and they look original. That's me. Everyone's different.
I agree.
Yeah, I like original finish. Like 4-3, I'm going to do it. You guys take a look at the video. I got spilled paint. I got finish missing off the top. I got a ragged door.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to bring it back. But when I do bring them back, I try to make it more looking original. It's not going to be.
There was this British guy that I don't even know if any of his articles are still on the internet. I read almost everything that he wrote. And it wasn't about antique phonograph restoration. It was about furniture restoration. And this is back when I was learning about finishes. And the one thing that stuck in my mind, he said, if anyone looks at your work and they say, wow, that's really well preserved, then you've succeeded.
Yeah. The best thing I ever learned from anybody in the phonograph world was Ron Deffelson. And I was working on a motor, and I'm a young guy, I'm 30 years old starting in this stuff. And Ron said, your name's on that when it goes out the garage door.
I like that.
And I go, and it hit me. I'm going, okay. So in 40 years, I've had one come back and one no pay. When they leave a shop, they're going to run. My philosophy on motors are, I try to get it run a little better than it did originally.
Yeah.
Like Victor, I'm not going to pick on Victor, but I'm going to talk about Victor. When they drilled the spindle holes, the last of production in the 20s and stuff, the top casting, and then the spindle shaft goes in. The early ones were real nice and smooth, right? They were reamed out. The later ones, they just drilled it and popped it. They're just laminated. So I try to, in the videos, I say, okay, we need to fix the burrs inside and stuff so that runs a little bit smoother. But the killer is nobody ever oils their motors.
Right.
That's the killer. Like on nickel, I did a guy's 10, and I prepped my nickel, and then I sent it to this industrial plating company here in town. He does crap for NASA, CIA, and crap. And he nickels it, but when it comes back to me, it's the dull nickel. It's just gray. So when I re-nickel, like on this 10 I did, there's three things I had to re-nickel: speed control and a couple of screws. That way you can buff it out to match the nickel that's original. And the trick is with nickel, I'm experimenting all the time. Videos, 700 videos ago, I tell you to polish nickel out with flits, right? Now I'll tell you, I use 4-aught steel wool and Windex. I was doing some work, and I'm always experimenting. Seriously, I'm not stuck in the mud. This is the only way to fix a phonograph. A gazillion ways to fix your own. But me, I'm thinking, okay, how would I fix this crap in Russia? How do I polish the nickel out? They don't have flits. They don't have brasso. They don't have whatever. I go, okay, let me experiment. Put some 4-aught steel wool and sprayed it with Windex. Started wiping down the toner and wiped it off with a towel. And went, damn, this works.
A little cheaper too.
I'm always experimenting. Like, how can I do it better? How can the motor run better? What I've gone to now is I pack a spring barrel. I like grain grease because it's a synthetic polymer, never hardens, never goes away. Everything's good. And I think this is really good. So back in the old days, when I was first starting out, I don't know why I did this. I just said, maybe I can just thin that grease out just a little bit. I want the grease to be a little bit thinner. So I give it a shot of WD-40. And everything works well. I've never had a motor come back. So now what I do is I'll pack a barrel, and then I'll put a wee bit run of it in there. after I packed the barrel with green grease. And I thought, I figured this out because I make graphite grease. You have a brass gear to a steel gear, like on a Triumph, like Edison cylinder players. How can we protect that brass gear from wearing out against that steel gear in the Triumph? Well, it has a lot of power, 3-spring motor. I go, oh, so I did research, and I called my niece, who's a chemical engineer, used to work for Lockheed.
How's this resources? Come on.
I have houses research. Yeah. I go, I have a brass gear to a steel gear. She says, well, guys, they go, yeah, we have the $2,000 we spray on the gears or something. No. I go, how about graphite? And I was thinking, graphite, because that's available anywhere in the world. So I took graphite and I mixed it into a little tub of green grease. And then it turned into dough making bread. I'm thinking, okay, that thickened it up. Okay. So I added a little bit of STP and I thinned it out. And so then I was looking at a spring barrel, and it was, some of them are bent this way after you pull them out, and then some of them are really bent this way, and then you have these marks right down the center of the spring. I go, I think it's going to drag, because you'll rebuild a motor, and then you'll get the thump still. Why did I grease the barrel, and I still get this thump? It's sticking on that high spot of the spring. Okay, I don't want to have to redo a spring. So instead of STP, put a little bit of, instead of W40, I put a little bit of STP. Works there every time. Smooths it right up. STP's not going away, and the green grease isn't going away, and you're good to go. Mm-hmm. And then when the shaft goes through the center of the spring barrel, now I use STP, because you're never, ever going to go back to that shaft that goes through. Ever. When you pull them out, you can tell if a motor's run hard. You pull that shaft out, say a Victor, you pull that thing out, see wear marks on that shaft, you go, okay, they ran this thing, never greased it. Some of them you pull out, be nice. STP, it never goes away.
Yeah.
I love this. I'm really better at, if you ask me a question, I can answer it.
Yeah, the trouble is that we're all interested in everything that everybody wants to say. I'm not quite sure my listeners are, but that's, I don't really care. Part of it is I have my original listeners, and who all seem to have loved when we spoke last time. And then there's a lot of phonograph people that listen. I got emails from New Zealand. Wow. And people that knew Wyatt, a guy in New Zealand or whatever, and I get them all over. Which, two things going on here.
I did buy a new toy.
You did? What is it?
Nickel-plated Triumph.
I will not show any jealousy whatsoever.
There's a video on it when he got it. It was a birthday present, right? And it is it's mahogany with
nickel is just amazing.
With nickel plated, and it is glorious.
Yeah.
It's like the Super Bowl trophy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All of those plated ones, they came with a little ID tag, the signature tag with the umbrella style Thomas Edison signature, and that's what makes it very special.
I'll say one thing about buying phonographs before we all disappear, because if you're collecting phonographs, sometimes money gets in the way, like the nickel-plated Triumph. But luckily, we had the money to buy that.
Yeah.
If you're starting out, find out what phonographs they made poor people, middle-class people, and then they made the Bezos stuff, which was custom from the factory.
Yeah.
They built crap. Like in 1917, you could spend $45 to $1,750 for a Victor phonograph. You walk in to look at a phonograph, and you say, okay, that's a VTLA with an electric motor. Fairly unique and rare. Rare doesn't consequate money, but that's very fun. Let's say you've been spending $300 for a phonograph, and now you look at this thing, and this guy wants, oh my God, $100. There's a little bulb in there, and it's clean. All you got to do is clean the cabinet. Okay, I'll gamble on that. That's what you do. That's what I've always done. But I started out with junkers and redid them all.
It's funny because I like the cheap ones. It's something, I don't know, the everyday ones. And I'll post them, and people will say, that's not very collectible. I'm like, It's a part of history. It tells a story about it. I love it. I think Phonograph 3, 4, and 5. I bought at the first Wayne show for $150 each, and I was happy as hell to get them in my car.
Yeah, the horn and stuff. That phonograph, right? Maybe it was a 5. No, it was a 4. Maybe. I'm sitting looking at the marketplace in the morning with Cheryl, and I looked at Cheryl and I go, "You want to go to Savannah, Georgia today?" Now, I go, Vic 5 mahogany horn, $700. And I went. She goes, "Oh yeah, let's go." Text these guys 7:30 in the morning. "Oh yeah, it's available. I'll be there with cash." It's like they made phonograph record cabinets, and they made a 2-drawer, 4-drawer, and a 6-drawer, but you could order a 12-drawer. Special order. One. I'm on Facebook Marketplace. This thing's in Savannah too. And I go, "Hey honey, you want to go to Savannah today?" $300.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. What I'm saying is snooze.
I agree. I'm always all over it. I'll be there today. I'll be there in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That guy sent me a green oak standard. He had it. He goes, "Listen, I don't have the horn. It's in my office. I just want to get rid of it. $100. It was a dentist in Long Island. I'm like, I'm getting in the car.
I'm going up.
And it was perfect. I haven't done a thing to it. So I know why it's gonna crap out on us. And I thank you, Brett, for all your time. And
No problem. Anytime.
you're welcome to be on anytime you want. I appreciate all your time and telling the stories, Brett, as well as I appreciate everyone else. I look forward to other conversations with everyone.
Mhm.
And I hope people listen as many to this podcast as the other one we did, the 4 of us. Tracy, I always appreciate you.
Yeah, the questions I'll answer them.
All right, great. Yeah, anybody want to put your contact info on it, or you want I did it again. It's
You
because
want
I have.
to me, it's hurt@gmail.com. You want to know about fixing phonographs? It's on YouTube. It's Dyslexic Genius Hurt.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and everybody. Thank you for listening. I appreciate all of you, and I am so addicted to this hobby. I'm like in withdrawal every day.
Up to y'all, and that's my tip for the day.
Good night, everybody. Thank you all.
Take care.
Right.